people want to be in spaces where they can be themselves. You know, if that means that they want to pretend they're a dog, then great. I can provide a space for that. My name's Lara, and I'm also known as Divine Theratrix. When I created this name, this business, it was to bring together my interests in therapy, kink, and exploring sexuality. So my first career was as a lawyer, and in my private time, I was exploring this world of sexuality and kink. And I was beginning to see how therapeutic kink could be if applied with that intention. I then found out that there were practitioners doing this. They were calling it conscious kink. And I thought, well, maybe I could do that. Kink is usually associated with sex. You could say that it is a way of making sex more fun. However, for a lot of, let's just call them kinksters, it's not all about sex. It's such an individual experience, and what is conventional for one person, let's just say a queer person, might not be conventional for another person. What I think is more helpful is if we start looking at experiences in terms of what is dangerous or not. I think that's really what matters, not whether something is normal, because what's normal? Going to a normal club, you know, a nightclub that isn't kinky, I would quite often get chatted up by people when I didn't want to talk to them, or I'd be pressured to give people attention, or I'd be given more attention than I wanted. Whereas the kink world places a lot of emphasis on personal boundaries and consent. So most interactions are very respectful. And I really appreciated that, because although I was interested in sexuality and exploring that, I was a lot more interested in connection. So one of those activities that you might have heard of is impact play. This is rhythmic hitting, which can be done with a hand, which is called spanking, or you can use implements, which are things like whips, crops, or floggers. Something else could be role play, which is a kind of make-believe. There are also things like sensory deprivation, something as simple as applying a blindfold to a person to see how that heightens their other senses. But there are a huge variety of reasons as to why anyone would indulge in kink activities, and it can't be assumed that it's always the same. One person might like one aspect, someone else might like something different. I wanted to create the ideal place for me to work. And I wanted it to be a place that would become a home for various communities, somewhere that people could go to work, socialise, play, learn, and know that it was a safe space for them, because it was queer-owned, kink-positive, sex-positive, and all of these things which don't get much space in society. The type of people that become my clients are all kinds of people. It's, hugely varied. I also work with couples that perhaps want to try new things, experiment with kinky play. I teach people about communication skills, how to ask questions that clarify their understanding of something their partner has said to them. And in kink, you really have to understand. You have to get it right, because otherwise you're at risk of harming the other person. I really think that kink could be used as a living metaphor for relationships in general. You know, how we take on different roles, how we exert power over each other. And a lot of this stuff is done unconsciously by people in relationships. But if you're playing with kink, then it tends to make it overt. So I think it generates a lot of honesty and authenticity into relationships. I'm a big fan of asking for permission. Permission to touch, permission to ask, permission to reflect. For example, I might ask someone, even a friend, would you like a hug? Or I might ask someone, can I give you a compliment? or I might ask if someone wants to talk about it or if they just want me to listen. There are many ways that we can end up encroaching on each other's space, so I think it's always nice not to assume that a hug or an observation is welcome. The feedback that I get is that, they felt so loved, they found a community where they feel accepted, and that they could just relax and have fun as themselves.